This is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're learning Jewish astrology with Reb Yaakov Kronenberg, who's put together this compendium here of all different kinds of ideas about what astrology is, how to understand it. We've been working on astrology according to Jewish law, whether or not astrology is really Jewish, or maybe it's something that only belongs to Gentiles, or maybe it's false altogether. So therefore we understood that this little phrase that he said over here, and let me read it one more time because it's my theme song. It says astrology is the science of understanding time. In other words, a person asked me, he said, where in the Torah does it talk about the fact that the earth is rotating? We don't have to look in the Torah. We know that the earth is rotating. There's some kind of movement because we have different days, different weeks, different months. They change, and the seasons change along with it. This is all looked at as a kind of a wheel type effect, and it works into astrology as well. Now over here, we're going through Rabbi Avraham Bar Chiya in terms of proving the fact that that astrology, as Jews understand astrology, fits very nicely into the whole compartment of Torah. So he then talks on the subject of astrology and states that the first thing which comprises astrology is the study of astronomy. Back then, that is when, well, until recent times, astronomy and astrology were one art, which was astronomy, with part of it being astrology. Astronomy was the knowledge of how the heavens were built, where all the planets are, which one is higher than the others, how fast the planets move. That is the first part of astrology. He further says that we will see that the first of the sciences and that comprise astrology is the study of the shape of the earth, because we want to see what the earth is like, the shape of the earth and the heaven and their pictures, how they look in relationship to everything else, and to give proofs and signs for them that are circular like the picture of a ball. And the earth is, let's see a little bit more here, is planted. Let's get that right down. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. So he says it planted and stands in the middle of the firmament. From our perspective, the earth is in the middle of everything which surrounds it and travels around it from the east to the west, and to investigate the shapes of the planets and where they dwell in the firmament, and how the planets are one underneath the other. Now, all of those words. If you look at the sky, you may think that they are all at the same distance from the earth, while they are really at different distances. To know the shape of their orbits from the east to the west, and where their northernmost point and southernmost point are, which is called in Hebrew Makom Hashvi Berikia. That is the seventh place. That's what it says in the firmament. And how the constellations and move, and how sometimes they were closer or farther from the earth, and to calculate all their movements in order to know where each planet is standing in terms of the constellations. How to figure out their movements. And if they all are moving at the same speed, if it appears in the north or the south of the Kav, Ofen, and Maslas. Now, this, I don't know this phrase. I can translate it. It's the line of the wheel of the planet, which is another word, I guess, another word for orbit. The belt of the constellations, which the sun travels through the belt of the 12 constellations. So in each month, the sun is at a different point of the constellations, but the planets don't go through that belt. So they can be north or south of the belt. Now, let's read it again, because this is information, I'm sorry, that I don't know. So I'm interested in hearing it again. So in each month, the sun is at a different point of the constellation. So the sun is moving through the constellation. And there is a question about whether the sun is actually moving around the earth or the earth is moving around the sun. It's really academic. and there are different opinions. So in each month, the sun is at a different point of the constellation, but the planets don't go through that belt, so they can be north or south of the belt. So he says the Kav Oven Maslos, which is, he says the line, he calls it a belt. And if they're closer or farther from the Earth, and if their orbit is direct or retrograde, when it appears as if they go backwards, which that's what retrograde means, which we will call retrogression, and many other investigations which I don't have time to expand on. This science is the most exalted of all the sciences that comprise astrology. So therefore, he's talking about the astronomical part of astrology. The wise men of Israel and those of the nations were studying and explaining it. And the wise men of Israel only disagree with the wise men of the nations on a few points. So let's see what else he says. He then tells us that the second thing which comprises astrology, the first being astronomy, is what we call today astrology. This today's astrology, which is the study of how the planets and constellations impact on people in this world and influence their life. Now, so it could be very easy for us to understand this because we understand the moon and the tides. They somehow work together. I never lived by the seashore, and I never really watched or paid attention to the tide. So that's something I'm lacking. But we know that it's true. So the full moon or the different progressions of the moon have something to do with the tides. So it's understandable that all the planets have some draw or some influence on us as well. The second science, which comprises astrology, is dependent on the first because first you have to know all about the planets and where they are situated in the sky before you can talk about their meanings, and to know the rulership and the powers which were given to the planets. Once again, the planets, in this view, are like channels. Which planet rules over which sign? Which is good or bad in which sign? And the constellations in their orbits around the Earth, and if this power that was given to each planet stands when it is in every constellation. Now, let me see if I read that right. And if this power that was given to each planet stands when it is in every constellation. The powers of the planets are different in each constellation, and how this power changes as the planet moves through the firmaments when it is in the north and in the south, or when it draws closer to the Earth, in which case its impact would be stronger, and when it distances itself from the Earth, when its impact would not be as strong, and when it is traveling direct, when its impact would be more outward and also retrograde. All of these words need examination, but we're hearing them, some of us, for the first time, which could be more internal. So let's go on. Also, we have the power that the planets have on Earth and everything on it, including every person on his birthday with his individual horoscope and new events when they arrive. This knowledge was handed over and expounded on by the wise men of the science. Either was handed over to them by way of tradition, that is, there was a teacher who said it, or it came to them through divine revelation, or they learned it through experience in their lifetime, or a combination. In any case, this is the science of astrology. Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kollel, have been listening to the words of Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, a Jewish astrologer.